This is rental car number 103, and today I'm driving the 2018 Nissan Sentra SV. This is a compact four-door sedan that retails for about $20,000, maybe 19. Anyway, this is my kind of car. It's small, practical, inexpensive, and pretty fun to drive. So let's get started right away by jumping in, popping the hood, and taking a look at what's underneath. Just want to point out real quick that the actual prop for the hood is attached to the hood itself, which is a little bit weird, but it works. Anyway, this is a 1.8-liter 16-valve four-cylinder engine. It's got Nissan's CVT, or continuously variable transmission technology. Kicks out 124 horsepower. It's not much, but remember, this is a small car, so you don't feel that limitation too much. And because of that lack of power, you actually get some pretty good gas mileage. 31 miles per gallon in the city, 39 on the highway with a 13.2-gallon fuel tank. That means that you're going to be able to fill this car up for about $40, considering gas is about $3 a gallon by me. Also, I want to point out that the fuel cap for this vehicle is located on the passenger side of the vehicle. That threw me off a little bit when I pulled into the gas station, but anyway, I managed. So that's pretty much all the specs that I want to talk about for the Sentra. Let's jump inside so I can show you around this vehicle. So here's the steering wheel setup. Pretty basic setup in my opinion. Controls right here can adjust the entertainment features on the center display. You also have controls down here to interact with the digital display up here in the gauge cluster. On the right hand side you have your cruise controls along with buttons to interact with your telephone. Telephone? Cell phone. Anyway, up top, gauge cluster, two nice sized dials, and as I mentioned, you get a really big screen right in the center with all kinds of information on it. I like to keep it on the screens that either show you things about your speed, fuel economy, or the driving aids. All kind of fun features to play around with. Over to the left you have standard buttons here, window controls, door locks. Up on the dash you have the buttons to adjust the brightness of the display. Up here in the gauge cluster, mirror controls, trunk release, Eco and Sport mode buttons down here, along with your traction control. Up top, you have buttons to illuminate the cabin, a sunglass holder, and then a standard rear view mirror. No buttons of any kind on this. Down below, you have your center display. A little outdated in my opinion, but it works fine. If you'll notice, I got my phone connected via Bluetooth and I'm able to listen to my podcast without any problems. There's also dedicated buttons all over the place to help you jump to all the screens. Should note, not a touchscreen, right? If you'll notice, if you want to play or pause, you do have to actually press physical buttons. Down below you have your climate controls, nice big buttons to adjust the temperature, along with buttons in the center to adjust the fan. And then nice big buttons everywhere else to adjust everything else that's important. Below there you get one DC power port right here, and behind there kind of a storage area right here that's pretty good for your cell phone. Behind there you get your gear shift. Not too bad. It's made out of plastic, but it feels pretty good. You also have the overdrive button here on the left hand side. Nothing real special here, but I don't know, works fine. Behind there, another storage cutout. Here's where I've been keeping my cell phone, along with two cup holders and then an old-fashioned parking brake. Behind there, a small center armrest. Down in here you have an auxiliary jack and also a USB port, and then some storage area down here that's probably pretty useful, but honestly I don't find myself using this area at all recently. Over on the passenger side, there's a glove box. Small, but pretty deep. If you'll notice, that owner's manual is tucked way, way in the back and still sealed in plastic. Nice. All right, so I jumped back in the back seat, and just for kicks, I pushed the driver's seat back all the way. And if you'll notice, I still have legroom back here. There's not much, but there's about an inch or two between my knees and the back of that seat. So I think that says a lot. There's plenty of legroom back here, even if you're tall and lanky like me. There is a pocket on the back of the passenger seat right here to store some items, but kind of interestingly, it's not located on the back of the driver's seat. The back of the center armrest for the front seat passengers, you do have two small storage areas and then two USB ports right down here. Car seat anchors are fairly shallow. If you'll notice, you can actually see them without manipulating the seats at all. To me, that means that this will be a lot easier to connect a car seat than most of your average cars out there. There's also a center armrest. Folds down to have two small cup holders right there. All right, I know it's not much, but that's pretty much all the major amenities in the back seat. Let's open up the hatch so we can take a look at the storage space on the Sentra. If you'll notice, the wheel wells do infringe on the space a little bit, so you don't get that perfect rectangular shape that I love in sedans, but I do think you get enough space back here to haul around most of your major items, especially when you consider this is a small size sedan. It's also nice to see that you can lift up the floor and there is a spare tire down here. Not a full-size spare, but nonetheless it's nice to have. It's also nice that by pulling up on these little pegs right here, you can fold down the seats fairly easily and take advantage of all the storage space that the Sentra has to offer. I would note, however, that the little tunnel that's created between the trunk space and the cabin of the vehicle is a little bit small, so you might have trouble hauling larger items. Alright, so that's pretty much everything end to end on the Sentra. Let's jump behind the wheel so I can take you for a quick test drive. Alright, so together, let's test out the drivability on this car. First thing we need to do is start it up. Gotta put my seatbelt on too. Safety first. Alright, let's take it for a spin. Alright, so it's about time to get on the interstate. This is really the best way I can experience accelerating really hard in this vehicle without getting into too much trouble. So let's go around this tight turn. Feels pretty good. Slam down. 40. 50. I gotta yield. And I gotta go through a toll. Well, that wasn't a great idea, but you can see that the car hit the accelerator again. It's pretty responsive. Feels good. Alright, so I'm cruising at about 65 miles an hour. This is brand new blacktop. I think it's a great place to sort of listen to the cabin noise of the Versa. You definitely get that whoosh of air going by, but honestly, I'm pretty impressed with this, especially considering how inexpensive this car is. I like the amount of cabin noise that I'm getting. Personally, I don't want the car to be completely silent. I do like to hear a little bit about what's going on outside. And in this car, if I turn on my podcast, really I can listen to it at a pretty low volume, even when I'm driving at high speeds, because, well, the cabin noise is bearable. All right, last thing I want to talk about is handling. This is a small car, so you should expect it to handle well, and it does. I've said this before, but I'm a pretty big fan of Nissans. I've been driving them a lot lately, not by choice. It's just what I've been getting from the rental car companies. I actually had two Sentras back to back, both a blue one and a black one, and I loved them both. This is the black one, although you can't tell. I took it for a spin in this parking lot, and I did a bunch of donuts. Despite the fact that everyone was staring at me a little bit, I had a blast. This car handles extremely well, even at slow speeds. And I do admit that slow speeds aren't the best way to test out a car like this, but even at slow speeds, you can feel that this car really hugs the road. You have control throughout the entire turn, and it's just kind of fun to drive. Anyway, this is my long-winded way of saying, don't worry about handling or acceleration. This car performs exactly as you expect it to, especially at a $20,000 price point. All right, so that's pretty much everything, end to end, on the 2018 Nissan Sentra SV. I was lucky enough to rent two of these back to back. I had them for 4 days total. And after all that time, I think I'm going to give the Sentra 4 stars. Look, this is right in my wheelhouse. It's small, it's practical, it's inexpensive. I love it, but I can't give it 5 stars because it is missing some of the updated tech features that I personally really love to play around with. And I think Nissan can probably add it to this car, even though it's a pretty small price point. Anyway, that's my feelings on this car. If you think differently, please leave me a comment below. I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time when I rent my 104th rental car. I'll see you then.